All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I have for you guys today, Mr. Olympia Chris Bumstead, your 2019 and 2020 Mr. Olympia champion, posting another physique update, this time at 8 weeks out from the 2021 Mr. Olympia, where Chris will be looking to three-peat and win his third classic physique title. So Chris posted this recent physique update after the Tampa Pro, where his brother-in-law Ian Vier secured the victory and is now going to the Olympia off that qualification, and Ian also going to the Texas Pro and then the Arnold Classic. And we're going to talk about the Texas Pro later in this video because that lineup is starting to shape up quite nicely. But Chris Bumstead posted this. The caption referencing some health issues he had a few years back. He said, "I had some health issues that have continued to affect me physically and mentally on and off through the years. I try not to talk about it as I don't want to put my energy on it, but this past weekend was very exciting for me. A huge thing that I noticed in my body is inflammation, water retention, especially after any form of cheat meal or lots of sodium. For this reason, I have been much more health conscious and strict with my diet year round, and I really haven't had any cheat meals during my preps. But I still have moments of fear and anxiety that it will come back. This last weekend, after Ian's big win, we went out and I indulged in a cheat meal because my body was in a good place. For the first time since 2017, I woke up the next morning with no water retention, actually looking better than the day before. An even bigger win for me was that I wasn't anxious about my health." So while the big part of this physique update was the fact that we got a recent physique update from a reigning defending Mr. Olympia at 8 weeks out from the Olympia, the other big part and very important part is that Chris is healthy and he feels healthy and his body is healthy going into the Olympia. We know there's been years he went into the Olympia off of an injury, off of an illness, and those factors caused him to be off. So not only does Chris look bigger and better at 8 weeks out from the Olympia, but his body is apparently healthier than ever going into the Olympia since 2017, which I think is another good sign leaning towards the three-peat from Chris Bumstead. I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to do my official Olympia predictions and my official Arnold Classic predictions here in a few weeks, but I'll give you guys an early one. Chris Bumstead to win this year's Olympia for the third time is my classic physique Olympia prediction. I know it's early, but I predicted it early last year too, and it was correct. You heard it here first. Chris Bumstead will win the 2021 Mr. Olympia. All right, so next up in the news, let's talk about the Texas Pro. Who's in and who's out? So first up, Charles Griffen, third place at the Tampa Pro. A really solid package is what we saw from Charles this weekend. I think he looked phenomenal, just not enough to crack into those top two spots with Phil Clahar and Ian Vier. But still, I think a really solid package from Charles. This was probably the best we've ever seen him or close to it. Now, Charles announced today that he will not be going on to Texas, and he will be shutting down for the rest of the year. So it looks like we will not see Charles at the Olympia or the Arnold Classic. He's done for the year is what it looks like, and he's going to refocus and go back to the drawing board for his next go-around. So no Olympia qualification, no problem. So Charles won't be in Texas, but we know that Ian and Steve Kuclo will be. Let's talk about some more guys that announced they will be competing in Texas. Hassan Mustafa just posted today a picture of him posing at what appears to be backstage, and he says, "Not done yet. Texas Pro and then the Arnold." I was curious as to why he didn't do Tampa, and he still hasn't really offered any explanation for that. But I thought we were going to see him in the Tampa lineup. He was not. So maybe that extra time that he took off of not competing, maybe that will be the difference in his physique, and maybe we'll finally see a ripped, peeled to the bone version of Hassan. Because I'm telling you guys, if and when we do see that, he's going to be a very, very dominant competitor at whatever show that happens to be where he nails it. And I want to see him nail it. Maybe it will be Texas, and maybe all this talk about Ian and Steve is unwarranted, and maybe he comes in and wins the whole thing. Now, looking at the pattern so far of Hassan's recent competition showings, the pattern would suggest that he's not going to do that, but I'm still rooting for him nonetheless because I do like his physique. Now, another guy doing the Texas Pro that I'm extremely excited to see compete again is Phil Clahar. Phil Clahar, the guy that just took second to Ian Vier in a controversial fashion. A lot of people believe that Phil was robbed and that it was very close between Ian and Phil, making the argument that Phil showed a lot more detail. He was a lot more conditioned, and he was really dominant in the back poses. I think one thing where Ian got the edge on Phil was some of the side poses, but I think you can make no argument that Phil took the back poses hands down, and it wasn't even close. Now, Phil recently responded to one of my comments today where he says, "Thanks, brother. We're not done yet. Texas, here we come." So Phil is another one joining the Texas Pro lineup that could potentially do some serious damage, judging by what we just saw in Tampa, where I would say he nearly defeated Ian Vier. So it was close. By all means, I would say it was close. I don't think I personally would quite call it a robbery, but I definitely, watching prejudging, I had Phil winning. At the night show, I think Ian tightened up significantly, and I could see them giving Ian the nod. But definitely at prejudging, I had Phil ahead. Now, one guy who will not be competing in Texas apparently is Max Charles. He did just compete in Tampa, but he posted this update from his hotel room right before Tampa. And he says the hardest part after a show is to find the mental focus to go back and do it all over again. I'm not going to lie, it ain't easy. I will find the strength and focus to make improvements. Only 7 weeks to go. And if I was them, I wouldn't underestimate me. So it looks like he will be skipping the Texas show and also skipping, I guess, the Alicante, Spain show and going straight into the Arnold Classic, looking to earn enough points there to qualify for the Olympia. And the reason why I wanted to mention Max Charles in this video is because I also wanted to go over the current point standings after all these shows that we've had recently and the current Olympia qualified competitors list. So let's get into that next. So as far as the 2021 Mr. Olympia is concerned, as it pertains to men's open bodybuilding, here are the competitors that are qualified and don't need to do anything else. James Hollingshead, Regan Grimes, Mamdoa Elsbaye, a.k.a. Big Ramy, Brandon Curry, Phil Heath, Hadi Chupin, William Bonac, Justin Rodriguez, Nick Walker, Patrick Moore, Akeem Williams, Andre Presti, Hunter Labrada, and Ian Vier after that Tampa Pro win. So this is the most recent up-to-date list after Tampa, with Tampa's points factored in. Now, the point standings, as you can see pretty clearly there, the top 3 in the point standings when the qualification window closes. So after Texas and Spain are over, I believe the deadline closes like early September or something like that. So once that window closes, however those top 3 point standings shake out, the top 3 there will qualify, which is interesting for Max Charles, whom we just mentioned is not doing Texas and likely not doing the Spain show. Max is currently 4th in points, so he's just outside of the qualification window if he wanted to qualify for the Olympia, which I think is interesting because probably if he did do Texas and or Spain, he would probably earn enough additional points to crack into that top 3. But right now, number 1 leading in points is Mohammed Shaban with 19. Number 2 in points is Mohammed El Imam from Russia with 15 points. And Hassan Mustafa is tied with him, also with 15 points. So I guess there's one opportunity here. I think both Muhammad and Hassan, I think both of them are actually doing Texas. So if one of them wins Texas, that would then take them out of the points list, and it would bump Max into one of those top 3 spots. Because my understanding is the Arnold Classic this year that Max is doing, only the winner qualifies for the Olympia. And all other placers, all other divisions, all other points, all that is for next year. 2022. The only thing that applies to this year's Mr. Olympia is the winner of men's bodybuilding in the Arnold Classic. So it looks like, based on Max saying he's not doing these next 2 shows and the next show that he's doing is the Arnold, it looks like we probably won't see Max on the Olympia stage, but it looks like we probably will see Mohammed Shaban and Hassan Mustafa, because I would expect here in Texas, both of them are going to earn even more points, solidifying their position even further. So that's kind of your Olympia preview right now, and there will be some more names added, especially after Spain. There'll probably be 2 new names added to that list. But that's where it stands as of right now. So the final story that I have for you guys today, William Bonac, who certainly on paper is the favorite to win the Arnold Classic this year, because he's the winner from last year. He's the defending champion. He's a consistently high Olympia placer. He's consistently in that conversation. First call out, top 3. And he posted this physique update with a very impressive back double biceps. Many people think that Williams' best poses are the back poses. That's where I think he beats a lot of guys that might be bigger, might be better than him. His back is so dense and thick that I think in those shots, that's where he makes up a lot of ground for some areas that might be considered lacking. And he says, I'm not done yet. It ain't over till it's over. This picture apparently is old, but it's only 3 weeks old. He says pictures from 3 weeks ago. This would be 10 weeks out from the Arnold Classic and at 12 weeks out from the Olympia. So I would say 12 weeks out from the Olympia, that's a pretty damn impressive physique update, and I think that's the benefit. It could be a benefit, and it could also be, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It could be a benefit, and it could be a disadvantage. A lot of these guys doing the Arnold Classic that are already qualified for the Olympia, Bonac being one of them, they run the risk of potentially peaking for the Arnold and not peaking for the Olympia, because these shows are so close together in proximity, I believe exactly 2 weeks apart. Peaking for a show is a very difficult thing to do. So if they're able to achieve that for the Arnold, I think it makes it a lot less likely that they can replicate that again for the Olympia. So there's that risk. But on the other hand, the fact that they're prepping for a show that's 2 weeks earlier than the Olympia, it could mean they will be in better shape from a conditioning standpoint for the Olympia, because they had the Arnold as kind of a warm-up show, and they had that additional time to prep. So that's one thing that I'm going to be very interested to see with the Arnold Classic, is what guys does the Arnold Classic help, and what guys does it potentially disadvantage? Because there will be several guys competing in that lineup that are already qualified for the Olympia that don't necessarily need to do the Arnold. So after the Olympia is over and we see who placed where, and where they placed at the Arnold, we'll be able to make that determination a little bit, whether or not the Arnold helped or hurt some of these guys with their Olympia placings. Maybe we see a guy like Nick Walker, a young guy like Nick Walker, maybe he wins the Arnold and then takes like 12th at the Olympia. I mean, we could see something like that, and I think that would be interesting. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but just for example, that's what I'm saying. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Please give the video a thumbs up if you did in fact enjoy it, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out.